welcome to Beyond the Surf. Today we have Jeff Hanson, aka BigTikiDude. You all know he's very instrumental in the genre of surf music, and we are just happy to have him aboard. And
glad to be here.
Yeah, man, it's so rad.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, man.
Good to see you.
Yes,
It's been a long time.
It's been such a ride, man, especially with this whole COVID thing.
Yeah, hopefully we're getting back to normal.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Indeed, man.
But yeah, there's been a lot of bands doing albums, you know, but the shows are starting to come back. So we shall see how it goes.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of people, man, recording during COVID, a lot of remote stuff, and a lot of creativity, man, that's been happening. So that's exciting to hear.
Ironically, some of the bands I was really hoping would do something didn't do it. You know, and I was like, oh boy.
Right.
So, you know,
hopefully they do,
but
man.
yeah, it seems like there's a ton of stuff that bands are putting out, you know, that they did record. So that's the good thing, but not everybody. So.
And the shows too, man, especially.
It seems like there's really a lot of stuff on the way. So some bands are like still rehearsing, you know, dipping their toe back into the water, and some people are, you know, also being very careful because, you know, them or someone in their family has, you know, medical issues that they need to be careful about. So that's understandable, you know. Me, and I'm borderline diabetic, and my family is diabetic, so, you know, we need to be careful also.
Right.
But, you know, I've been going to a few shows and wearing a mask, and, you know, they're dropping the mask mandate, but, you know, sometimes you're in a big room with a lot of people and you're like, this is kind of sketchy, you know. So it's one of those things where most everybody's probably okay, but you never know. You know, we got it in December and we were all vaccinated and stuff. So anyways, on to better topics. Let's not, you know, talk about COVID the whole time.
Yeah, indeed, man. So Jeff, I wanted to talk about your intro, man. Your how did you get involved in the genre surf? Well, what got you going, man?
It's a very interesting story, and I've told it to, you know, people a few times, you know, over the years. But the one thing is when I was a little kid, my dad's got, you know, 345s, and, you know, he's got a bunch of, you know, Beach Boys and Jan and Dean, but he's got a few ventures. And he's got Pipeline by the Shantays, he's got Wipeout by the Safaris, and he has the original pressing of Penetration by the Pyramids, which is weird because he lived in Northern California. So John Blair said, you know, to get an original pressing in Northern California is kind of strange, but sometimes people would buy like 50 or 100, and then they would go up the coast and sell them at music stores and surf shops. So he got one at a surf shop in Santa Cruz. But anyways, so I always loved that stuff, you know, when he would play it occasionally on the turntable. And once in a blue moon, you hear something on the radio, you know, because we used to listen to a lot of AM radio. My dad had a 57 Chevy, so, you know, but I grew up listening to classic rock. But he was also really big into the whole, like, spaghetti Western movies. So I remember hearing that music in those movies and really being taken with that, you know. So I wouldn't say it's surf, but it definitely has that twangy guitar. And then in the late 70s, early 80s, hanging out with my uncle when we moved from Northern California down back to Southern California, my uncle was listening to a lot of punk and new wave. And of course, you know, a lot of that stuff had some surfy elements, you know, so it was just there. And I even remember hearing commercials for like Sunkissed, you know, the orange soda, or even like, you know, diapers for kids to go swimming. And you would hear surf music, and I was always like, "Oh, there's that sound." You know,
what is it?
And so, you know, I got into heavy metal and stuff. But then there was this band called the Black Widows, and they were going to be playing like a mile from my house at the Doll Hut. And I was like, "Damn, they stole the name that I wanted to have for my metal band if I ever started one." So I went to go see, you know, what they sounded like. Well, they didn't play, but the Insect Surfers did. They were going to have a gig where it was Insect Surfers, Black Widows, and called it like Insectapalooza. You know, so I saw the Insect Surfers, and they were a mix on some of their songs of spaghetti Western and surf. You know, so the light bulb went on. I was like, oh, I get what they're doing. They're mixing these two different sounds that are similar. You know, it's like the peanut butter and chocolate, you know, thing. So I really liked them. And being that I came from a rock metal background, I really liked their driving edge, and their dueling guitars kind of reminded me of like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, which were, when you asked Dave Arnson about that, he's like, well, I'm not really a Priest or Maiden fan. He goes, but I can see where some people might make that connection. He's more into like television and Talking Heads, you know, type type of art rock stuff. But the other guy that was in the Insects that played the Flying V, Dano, he was very much into Maiden and Priest, so that kind of, you know, was that side of it.
Connection.
But then every Sunday was a different instro band, and I was off Sundays and Mondays from work at the time. And so I would go every Sunday and watch these different bands, and then I signed up for their mailing lists and stuff, and the Hillbilly Soul Surfers put me on their mailing list, and they sent me a postcard in the mail that they were playing at the Surfing Museum in Huntington Beach.
Cool.
So I went down there to see them, and it was in the parking lot on Sunday afternoons, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then the lady, Corvette Sandy at the time, she was like, every Sunday, you know, we have bands playing here, 1 or 2 bands in the parking lot. I was like, wow, every Sunday here, every Sunday at the Doll Hut, you know, I was just like, it was under my nose, but because I saw the Insects in November '96, and when I later found out that there was bands playing surf, even European bands playing at the Doll Hut, like in 91, 92, 93, they were coming on tour and stuff, and like the Bombers would play there, and even the Mermen would come down from NorCal and play there, and it's just this tiny little, you know, rockabilly shack, roadside shack, you know, but it was a surf-friendly place, you know, that would have, you know, surf at it. So then I started, like, you know, buying CDs from the bands that were playing, and then I would also buy CDs at the Surfing Museum. Like they had like 70 or so, you know, surf CDs. Right. And my friend Baja Marty, rest in peace.
Miss him, man. Yeah, he's awesome.
I love you, brother. Yeah. He's like, if you really, really want to get into surf, he's like, you got to go with me to Go Boy Records in Redondo Beach. You know, and for those who don't know, Go Boy was a store, but they also put out the Slacktone albums.
Yeah, Slacktone.
And so I went with him to Go Boy, and they had like a section, and it was new and used, and then it was 60s, 80s, and current. You know, so everything was in one section. You didn't have to go all over the store looking.
Love that.
You know, and I was just like one-stop shopping. It was like 300 CDs, just like, look and buy. You know, so I would always, you know, spending between $50 and $100. Right. You know, I was like, God, this is going to put me in the poorhouse. You know, and Marty was like, oh, you think this is great? You should have went to the Ruckus store. And the guy, Chris Ashford, that was doing like the Davy Allen and the Halibut stuff in the 80s, he had a store in West LA. Back in the like 80s and 90s, but sadly it had gone out of business. But he said it had way more stuff than what Go Boy had, and I was like, well, maybe it's a good thing I never went. But you know, I would go to like Lou's Records down in Encinitas on the way to San Diego to see bands, and I would, you know, any place that had a little tiny surf section, you know, Bionic Records, like the famous, like what is it, that punk metal band. Offspring. They were wearing a Bionic Records shirt in one of their videos. So, anyways, all 3 of the Bionic Records had little surf sections. You know, they were like known as a metal punk store, but you know they had a little bit of surf. So I was always like, why is it so underground? Why is it so like hard to find? You know, like I was telling your wife a little bit ago, it's like if it's on TV, it's on cable access. If it's on the radio, it's on a college station. It's never in like regular TV. And I was always like, man, if it got played on regular radio, even like K-Rock or KLOS, you know, just on a Saturday or Sunday morning, like they had a 1-hour show, it would get so much exposure. But those stations or TV shows, they'll never do it. You know, just because A, there's no lyrics, and B, it's like a sub-genre, you know, so like it'll never get its like exposure that it needs like it did in the 60s, because that's how surf exploded in the 60s, is it was being played on regular radio, you know, and the teens loved it. So sorry for rambling so much.
Oh no, man! You guys want to hear this stuff, so that's why
it's one of those. It's one of those things where, you know,
it's a love, it's a passion.
I've been into the music for 25 plus years, and there's so much info where when I meet somebody new that's getting into it, I want to tell them everything, but I don't want to come off as like Rain Man, oh, I'm like short but super special, it's like, but it's one of those things where anybody that likes surf, they're usually a little bit off the beaten path. So it's like, is the regular society weird because they don't like it, or are we weird because we like it?
We like it, right?
So
one or the other.
But it's one of those things where you find somebody that plays regular music and they know what surf is, but they just don't realize that there's so much depth to it. Like they go, oh, it all sounds the same. It's like, no, really, when you dive into it, there's so many.
There's rhythm, there's a melody, there's things going on.
But like all the subgenres of instrumental, you got spy and hot rod and space and spooky, and you know, it just goes on and on.
That's what I love about it.
You know, the tiki and the spaghetti western. You know, so there's so much more. It's like with rockabilly. Oh, it all sounds the same. But then there's this guy that's from Spain, I think it was. He played at the Surfer Joe Festival in Italy, and he specializes in that rockabilly and roots rock stuff. And he goes, here's the 10 different like main kinds of roots rock rockabilly. And it's all so different. But you know, when you break it down and you stop and you start and you stop and you start and you go, this is so-and-so sound and this is so-and-so sound. It's like, it's so much, you know, variance between the different styles. But the thing is if you see a band that's just kind of so-so playing rockabilly, you know, then they all kind of start to sound the same. You know, so it's like I could go to a show where there's a surf band and a rockabilly band and a punk band, but would I want to go to a rockabilly festival? Like there's one that they do at Havasu, and it's like a 3-day festival, and they'll have one instro band each morning at like 11 or noon, but all the rest is rockabilly. And people are like, you should come to this, and I'm like, yeah, no. I'm like, it's probably fun, but I was like, I'm just not that into rockabilly. It's like, I don't hate it, but I only have like, you know, 10 CDs of that stuff.
Yeah,
you know, it's same with garage. It's like I can take a little bit of it, but after a while, it's just like, ooh.
Yeah, a little sprinkle here and there, and let's have some variety.
And this is a kind of a weird thing to say, but for me, I always look at surf like rockabilly and garage and surf are all related, like they're cousins.
Right.
But rockabilly and garage are like the teenagers, and surf's the little redheaded cousin that's 5 with freckles, and the 2 older ones look at it and they go, yeah, you're our cousin, but don't stand too close to us because you're not cool. You know, they're like, you know, always keeping them at arm's distance. You know, and it always like, I have a little chip on my shoulder, you know, because of that. So over the years, you know, going to shows and stuff, it's like, you know, trying to find out about shows. You know, it's like you gotta, you know, before the internet, you know, I would look at the OC Weekly and the LA Weekly, and hopefully somebody would send you a flyer in the mail, or you would hear from a friend or whatever. But, you know, now with the internet, that helps a lot, but it's still very sparse. Sometimes you'll find out about a show after it's you know, and you're like, damn, I wish I had known about that, you know, but it's like, I mean, like Facebook and social media, it's not perfect. Just because, you know, somebody posts something doesn't mean that anyone that's into that is going to see it. So
it almost seems with Facebook, there's an algorithm, they call it.
Exactly.
You know, and you might miss something if you don't follow or
like you have to periodically go to certain sites and then, you know, to look at, you know, or somebody's page, like a certain band.
Get their feed later.
Yeah, like you have to constantly like re-like things, you know, to make sure you stay current.
Get it refreshed.
You know, but just like sometimes I've got so many friends, it's like hard to see everything. Like I sit on the phone too much as it is. I don't want to sit there forever trying to make sure, you know, that I'm in everybody's feed constantly. But you know, it's one of those things where people, you know, they would start to be like, you know, hey, it's cool that, you know, you come to shows, but have you ever thought about doing shows? And I don't know if you heard about it or not, but when Marty had his 50th birthday party at Susie's in Hermosa, I put together 8 bands for that. And it was at the venue where Adrian from Chum used to do the South Bay Surf Stomp. So they were like, this is really cool. You should do this more often. Well, when I did the very first surf convention, you know, like 150 people showed up. You know, we had Eddie Bertrand and Paul Johnson there. So it was like flowing out into the parking lot. It like overflowed, you know. So it was like, we got to find a bigger place. So that's why when we went to the Starting Gate where you guys played at, you know, where that place held close to 300. And then we were there for like 7 years, and then we got asked to go somewhere else because so many people were showing up that the parking lot it was full, and the other stores that were in that strip mall, their customers had nowhere to park. So we went to the Elks Lodge in Garden Grove for 1 year, and then we went to the Alpine Village in Torrance for 4 years, and that place was great. But sadly, it went out of business even before COVID hit. They just weren't doing well business-wise. So this year, we have a new venue. It's really cool. It's in Hollywood. People have been asking us to move the convention, the Surf Guitar 101 convention, to LA, Hollywood. So we're in Hollywood. Can't mention where just yet, but soon. Keep your eye out on SurfGuitar101.com and my Facebook, Jeff Hanson, aka BigTikiDude.
Yeah, we'll have all those links in the description.
All the info. Sure. We're hoping very soon that we can post that, the lineup of who the bands are, and also the venue. But the date I do have, that's in stone. It is Sunday, July 31st. So we had to move 1 week into July instead of August.
Right.
But Saturday and Sunday are smaller shows. The Barclay on Friday and Secret Island on Saturday, and then the big show will be on Sunday. But it's like noon to 6, so it's not too late, for a Sunday. Everybody can be home and put their feet up and be all relaxed by 8 o'clock.
Heck yeah, man.
And then the Huntington Beach Pier shows. I've been booking those the last 5 or 6 years after Linda passed away.
Man.
And so many people from the surf scene over 25 years have either disappeared or passed on, so it's kind of sad. But Linda, passed it on to me, to do it, and then she passed away a year or two after that. And so I've been doing those. Last year we only had 2, and then the year before that we only had 1, before COVID hit. So this year we have 6. So April, no May. So we got April, June, July, August, September, October. Either look on my Facebook page or hopefully soon the Surf Museum will have the dates and the bands up on their website. Huntington Beach International.
Will all be included in there with dates too as well in the description.
Huntington Beach International Surfing Museum, either their website or their Facebook page. But the first one will be April, but that's before this will air.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, it's good. I got 7 bands on each pier show. So
amazing,
6 shows, 7 bands, and there's still more bands that want to play. So I put them on the waiting list.
Heck yeah, sweet, man.
And then of course there's bar shows and stuff. There's this new place in Long Beach called Secret Island. This guy Christopher Burkhardt, he does a lot of different roots rock Americana type stuff.
Cool, man.
So he wants to start doing a Sunday surf thing, like every single Sunday.
Rad, man.
We'll have one band play 2 or 3 sets. So that's pretty cool. It's fairly good money, and it's a neat tiki bar. It's in downtown Long Beach, called Secret Island, and the shows are like 3 to 6, I think. So human hours, and not too late, and they got good drinks and food there. So check out Secret Island. That's in downtown Long Beach.
Fantastic, man.
Sometimes he asks me to DJ at those.
Rad. And so then you now. Do you do a lot of DJing gigs?
Not a ton.
As much?
I used to do more like tiki stuff, like tiki events, where I would play Exotica and a little bit of mellow surf, a little bit of lounge and bachelor pad stuff mixed in, a little bit of Hawaiian. That's kind of, there's a lot of tiki events, but they're not so much into the traditional tiki musics per se,
Gotcha.
Which is kind of a bummer because, like I love surf, but I love tiki, and I like tiki to be real.
Right.
And tiki recently seems to be kind of going a little bit left. Right. Where a lot of Party City, Rainbow,
it's
tikis.
becoming very commercialized, mainstream.
Well, commercialized, but it's also like it's not authentic looking tiki.
Right.
And then people are into all different kinds of weird musics, and they're associating these musics with tiki.
With it.
Yeah, like 80s, like new wave and stuff. And
like 80s, man. But
yeah,
tiki,
it doesn't go.
Keep it tradish.
Yeah, so it's like if I did play surf at a tiki event, it was always on the mellow side, like Aqua Velvets, Huntington Cads. I wasn't playing Dick Dale and the Insect Surfers too much, at tiki events. But anyways, it's one of those things where I'd almost rather now just DJ surf at a show with surf bands. If someone wants to do a tiki event and hire me, I'm more than happy because I have so much of the music. But there's other DJs, and then now some tiki events are playing garage music, and I'm like, I don't get that at all.
Really?
Yeah, so it is what it is.
A lot of changes, man.
Yeah, so
the movement of things.
But that being said, Tiki Oasis down in San Diego, that's the week after the surf convention. And they've got a fair amount of surf bands that are playing at that. I'm on the inside, so Otto told me. So if you're coming to SoCal for the convention, which is July 29, 30, 31, the Tiki Oasis in San Diego is the following weekend. So the first weekend in August. That's like Wednesday or Thursday to Sunday. I think it's the Town and Country. Just go to tikioasis.com for the info on that.
A lot of good shows, man, for summer, man.
Tons and tons of stuff coming up. I got to start writing it all down. I'm trying to like keep it in my mind. And now that I'm over 50, it goes in and out the other side.
Right. So with SG101, when was your intro to that? When did you discover those guys? Because it used to be
the forum.
The forum used to be a Yahoo group.
Well, it was on Cowabunga. Was the original?
Cowabunga, that's right.
Was the original Yahoo group. And long time ago, before I got a computer in 2000, but before that there was like a listserv, and it was from actually San Diego State, which ironically that's where Clint Beechwood did his show for a long time. They just recently let him go from there.
Yeah,
but the station that he was at the college where Cowabunga was from, and he had no idea. But then Cowabunga originally went, or not originally, but after a while it went to Yahoo. And there was so much like politics and infighting between traditional and progressive instrumental, stuff that somebody, Brian Neal from the Midwest, decided to start SurfGuitar101, a Yahoo forum. He said, we don't want any politics and we don't want any fighting about what style of surf is better. So he started SurfGuitar101, and there was other ones, Reverberama, and separate ones for bands and stuff. But Cowabunga and SurfGuitar101 were the two big ones. And then over time, everyone just kind of gravitated over to that. But then he didn't like the way Yahoo groups worked, so then he started the forum. And there was also Tiki Central, which was a forum that was very similar to SurfGuitar101, the way it worked, and it just disappeared for 2 years, and it just came back. So I sent a link to Brian saying, hey, look, they had problems too, because he was debating whether he should keep it going or not. And I was like, maybe you need to talk to the guys that run Tiki Central and see, if they can help you with some of the ideas about keeping, because the way the forum SurfGuitar101 runs, the programming or the software for it gets old and it doesn't work the same. So he needs to update it and get it to work better on a phone, instead of just on a home computer. I can do it on my phone fine, but some people complain about it. But anyways, it's it was cool because it was more kind of gear related and less fighting on SurfGuitar101, So then there was that topic that came up where somebody was like, hey, we should do some type of festival where I forget the other guy, but you and
I started that forum, the thread.
And Tim Farrell, he was a HB Kahuna, was chiming in, talking about doing an event, and I was at work and I couldn't get on the computer until I got home. So I came home and I saw this thread and I was just like, whoa, there's all this talk about doing an event. I was like, what's this all about? And some people were saying, do it in Vegas, do it in Vegas. And there was a couple surf events that they did in Vegas, but it was like surf and garage. But just when you think about it, if it was all surf, how many people would go and would it be worth it to do it in Vegas, and what would the costs be? So logistics. And we figured that it would just be so much easier to do it here because there's so much gear here, so many bands here. It's like, why pay the money to travel to Vegas if it's all already here?
Come to the motherland, man, where it started.
That's the thing, is this is where surf started. It's like Vegas is cool, but you go there if you want to sweat and if you want to gamble and you want to drink. It's like, we do it here because
for surfing.
This is where it started. It's like, if you want to party, we can party here. But it's like the whole allure of Vegas just goes over my head.
And there's a mistake, especially for the outsiders that are coming from Europe and stuff, to make that homage, that trip, man, the pilgrimage.
Well, that's what I've told some of the people, and even some of the people that have come here, some of the bands, European bands or bands from other states. on Monday after the convention weekend, we'll go down to the Wedge, and I'll show them. This is the actual surfing spot that Dick Dale named the song after.
Right.
And here's the Gillette mansion that he lived in. Of course, that was in the 70s. It wasn't the 60s, but I didn't know that until later.
Right.
And I'll show them where the Rendezvous Ballroom was.
Right. Neewer Beach.
Yeah. Well, Balboa, but
right
yeah.
Area vicinity there.
But and then we'll go to the Surf Museum in Huntington, and we'll go to the TK Burgers, where inside they have all these surf records and surf like photos, actual surfing photos on the ceilings and stuff, and there's a little bit of tiki in there also, and then I always tell the people, if you actually really want to absorb what it's all about,
culture,
come here for a week and go to some of the surfing spots and some of the record stores and some of the venues where surf used to be at, the Rendezvous Ballroom. Well, that was in Balboa, but then there was the right next to, real close to where the Doll Hut used to be, was the what was it called? Brain fart. Where Dick Dale played after the Rendezvous.
Tip of my tongue too, man. Jeez, but
we'll put it in later.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was in Anaheim. It was really close to where the Doll Hut's at, and they actually tore it down a couple of years ago.
Shame, man.
But there was a gold plaque on the wall, and it said that Louie was written in that building. And then the Retail Clerks Hall in Buena Park. I've actually looked into that place about doing the convention there, but they want like $5,000, and it's just a big square white room, with a stage, and there's no lighting and no PA and anything. And I'm just like, if you have 5,000 kids, it's great, dancing. But if you only have 200 or 300, surf guys, it's not quite the same. So it's like I'm always wanting to do it in a place that has a little bit better of a vibe. I wish you could have seen the Alpine Village. That was so good. I mean, it's weird to put surf into, the German thing.
That kind of vibe.
But it was such a very homey, comfortable venue. And there was like a dance floor, then there was like the seating off to the side for eating, and all the vendors were around, but not being blasted by the music. So it worked out really, really great. I almost want to go back there and say, hey, can we clean the place up and lease it from you? Because it's just sitting there empty. So I don't know. We'll see.
Go.
Real quick, if you don't have it, get the Reverb Junkies DVD. It's a documentary about the Southern California surf scene about 10 or 15 years ago, and there's 2 interviews with Baja Marty in there, and that's like the total essence. So it's not a totally professional video, but it documents the scene that I know, and just those 2 scenes of Baja Marty. It's just, he loved surf so much. Like, he liked the British invasion, he liked rockabilly, but surf was like in his veins. And to watch those scenes of him, talking about it, it just makes me so happy, to see him, so stoked for surf, and he was so stoked that it was coming out.
It was infectious, man. Meeting him was very infectious with the passion that he has.
Well, like when I first got into surf, I was like 25, 26, and he looked at me and goes, well, you're young. I go, oh, what are you talking about? He goes, well, most people that are into surf are like, 40 and up. Right. I go, oh, okay. And then I later learned that, in the 60s, it was teens that were playing surf, and early 20s. And I go, well, how come teens aren't into it anymore? But there was like the Stingrays from Oceanside or San Clemente area. And then there's been a couple other younger bands, and there's one in NorCal. And, so every once in a while there will be a young band, but for the most part it's like, older guys that are kind of reliving their youth, But like, 15 years ago there was the Tequila Worms from here in Anaheim, and they were like 22, 24, at the time. So they weren't teens, but they were definitely young. And it's like, it made me so happy to see young, energetic people, not just old guys in Hawaiian shirts standing there looking at their feet.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's nice to see the younger generation.
Well, that's the one thing I've always loved about the Insect Surfers. Even though Dave's a little bit older than me, he moves around. And in the Reverb Junkies movie, he says, it's all about moving first and playing second. He goes, you got to feel that energy and you got to move. So that's the thing about surf is, like, as much as I like the mellow, relaxing side of it, that kind of goes with the tiki thing, I like the side of surf that's heavy and fast and energetic, and that's my rock side, metal side, scene, like trying to tell people, okay, if it wasn't for Dick Dale, there wouldn't have been harder rock and metal later.
Yeah.
And it's an assumption to make those jumps, but like everybody was playing through little tiny amps,
Right.
you know,
and they were breaking up and distorting.
And catching on fire, and the speakers were popping out and stuff. So he was always pushing for bigger and better and bigger and better.
Wattage.
So it's like there was no such thing as an amp with a separate head.
Right.
He was the one that pushed for that. So it's like to make that assumption kind of makes sense.
Right.
You know, where he calls himself, you know, the father of heavy metal was a little bit of a kind of a misnomer. But when I got into surf, I loved Dick Dale because it was so heavy and fast.
The drive.
Yeah, and to me, it made perfect sense, you know. But I mean, he did other stuff that was mellower and more exotic. But you know, the energy is what I like most about it.
Man, the drive.
So
right.
I'm really hoping that sometime that you can come down for the convention,
which I ain't gonna do.
But especially also the Surfer Joe Festival that Lorenzo does in Italy. I mean, to go over there and see like 2,000 or 3,000 people on a Friday or Saturday night, you know, outside, you know, watching music like late. Like the shows there start at like sunset and go till like 2 in the morning. You know, and there's just tons and tons of people just like soaking it up, and it's like, man, that's really cool. That's the great thing I found over the years about, you know, surf is that it's like an international thing because there's no lyrics.
No lyrics.
You know,
it just speaks to all folks.
There's so many people, especially since the internet age. You know, there's been so many bands that have heard it and started doing it. You know, because there's no lyrics. You know, like the Mexico scene is insane.
My gosh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff
and down in Mexico, it's a younger scene too, where they're like, you know, 20 to 40. You know, not 40 and up. You know, like here.
They're getting into it.
We're looking at my cat
back there,
hanging out by the pool, and we're wondering if it's going to jump in.
Snap? We'll include a snap so you guys don't miss the action.
We'll add the picture to the video.
Yeah.
I've never seen her on that. That's funny.
Just doing some rock climbing.
Yeah.
Well, very cool, man. Well, everything that's been discussed here, links will be in the description of the SG101 convention and all the events.
Huntington Beach Pier shows.
Everything. And the DVD that you've mentioned too as well.
Yeah, well, there's a few DVDs to look for. Pounding Surf is kind of like a surf drumming instructional, but there's some documentary in that. Surf Junkies. And then I think there's one about the Toronto scene, but I don't know the name of it. But then also the Sound of Surf that was in the works. And then Tom Duncan that was doing it passed away. But John Blair from John the Night Riders, he's going to finish that and get it out to the public hopefully this year. So keep an eye out for the Sound of the Surf.
Sure, guys. All right, well, this is Beyond the Surf, and this has been a.k.a. Jeff, Big Tiki Dude.
Kyle, great to see you, man.
Very instrumental, man. Yes, my friend, and we will be surfing again, man, and again and again. And thank you, guys. Please hit the subscribe, the bell, so you can get notified for the new uploads and videos. And please
look for surf in your area.
Yeah.
And if you don't know of any bands that are in your area, send Kyle or me a message, and maybe we can help you if you're living somewhere.
Yeah, leave a comment.
If you're not in SoCal, you know, if you're somewhere far away, you'll be surprised. Like, you know, there's bands in Idaho and Minnesota. They're all over.
And we love to hear from you too. Just leave some comments in there too. Any of you surfers out there playing bands.
And come to some big events that we got out here.
Cool. Peace out, guys.
Cheers.
See you soon.